Broadcasting to the Wizarding World since 2008.
HPA&A's official Harry Potter podcast.
Official Harry Potter podcast.
This is Hogwarts Radio. This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 225 for December 9th, 2018. Hogwarts Radio is HPA&A.com's podcast discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the Wizarding World. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out HPA&A.com. Hello, everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts fans since 2008. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Luke Hogan.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated.
It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday.
We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including exclusive merchandise, host vlogs, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Visit patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio to sign up today. Welcome to episode 225. We're pumping them out really quickly at this point. Coming to the end of the year, I feel like we're down to the finish line. But yeah, Gretchen has the week off this week, but we're so happy to bring back Luke and Bailey. God, guys, it's been a while. It's, you know, it must be nice to take a month off, just go on vacation at the most busiest time of the year. You know, we only had a movie release. We had, you know, some other things happen. I'm not salty.
Self-inflicted vacation. It was wonderful, but we missed the show.
But we are literally the worst. It was a pretty terrible time to force ourselves away from the show for a minimum of 2 weeks, in some of our cases more than that. But yeah, it was a nice break, you know, and I appreciate you signing our permission slips so that we can go on a field trip.
Yeah, just don't let it happen again.
Yeah, we visited Hogsmeade and it was wonderful.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We had homework on our time off.
You did. You guys did a lot of work, actually. And for our patrons, you put together kind of this like 10-minute long reaction of your viewing of the Crimes of Grindelwald film. And it was wonderful. It was great. There was a lot of good, interesting, thoughtful discussion in there that I'm sure we're going to dig into at one point or another.
We had a lot of thoughts. We kind of filmed that as soon as we got out of the theater, and then we probably did the first half of it, I think, and drove to go get some dinner, and we got to the parking lot and we're like, nope, we have more thoughts. Let's continue and then go get dinner.
Right. As we were driving, I mean, it was just like a 3 or 4 minute drive. We just kept talking, and I was like, okay, we have to rehash some of this again because
let's park somewhere.
Let's park and just record a couple more minutes because and I think we even mentioned it in the patron exclusive video. We could have sat there for an hour and a half. I really easily think that just the two of us alone could have sat there. There's so much to talk about with this movie, and luckily we have an outlet to do that.
You know, it's funny that, you know, I feel like we've already discussed a lot, but I went back and I re-listened to some of the episodes that we've recorded in the past couple of weeks, and we even did a crossover episode recently that was released on Thursday with Speak Beastie, an all Fantastic Beasts podcast, and it was our first ever Speak Beastie Radio. We invite you all to go check that out. And I honestly feel like we barely scratched the surface of this movie, and we've already been talking about it for 6 hours already.
Yeah, I definitely have listened back through the episodes that I missed, and I like a lot of the thoughts. I disagree with several of the initial thoughts, but I mean, that's anyone's take is going to be different from each other's, and I think everyone was still completely valid in their thoughts. It was just like, oh, I hadn't really thought of it that way, and I don't know. I'm glad to be back and open this I don't know, can of worms is definitely not the right term for it, because I'll say it right now. I really, really enjoyed this movie.
So, Luke, you did do a little bit of traveling while you were off, and you got to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Los Angeles for the very first time.
I did.
What did you think?
So I am a very, very picky person on things that I care about. Like, not in general, but things that I care about. If you're going to do something like this, it needs to be done well, or else it's going to be either lackluster or really cheesy. And I thought the level of detail that they brought is really, really, really impressive. And I was genuinely surprised at, one, the commitment to do it the right way, and two, just the attention to detail in every nook and cranny. There wasn't a single thing overlooked. Every single thing is meant to be there and placed there, specifically chosen for a reason. And I was very, very impressed.
Bailey, as somebody who goes to the theme park often, are you still blown away by the level of detail every time you go? Is there something that you don't notice every time you go, something new?
It's funny you should mention that, because pretty much every time I would see something that I hadn't ever noticed before, I would point it out to Luke, like, oh my God, I never even noticed. In the Three Broomsticks, for example, they have these little plaques on the wall all over the place that just have 3 brooms on them. And it's a really simple icon, but just the small details like that, there's things I've probably been at least 25 times since it opened a year and a half ago, and I still notice new things.
I feel that way whenever we step into the park in Orlando, because it's the same exact thing, same exact setup, same exact layout. The 3 broomsticks that are on the wall at the 3 broomsticks in Los Angeles are the same 3 broomsticks in the same exact place on the wall in Orlando. That's how intricate that detail, and that's how much they took care. And I'm so pleased that they did that, that they just really paid attention. I mean, granted, if they didn't, they would be ripped to shreds by the fans, but it's just awe-inspiring.
I think that might be the thing that impresses me most, is the meticulous nature of it, because they respect the fan base. It's not something, it doesn't seem like they're doing it to take advantage of us. Yes, they're making a lot of money off of it, but it's done in a way that, like, it's so easily justified, because once you enter that gate, I mean, you're there. And that was kind of the thing that blew me away when we were walking around the rest of the Universal Park. We did the studio tour, and you can still see the castle up on the mountain. And at times it's like, okay, well, that looks like a certain part of the park. And it looks so small when you're in other areas of the park, because it's a pretty sprawling area in general. But like, looking at the portion that's Hogsmeade looks like a very, very small portion as you're walking around it. I mean, you can see it from like all sorts of different angles. But once you're inside, like, just the real estate density that's designed into it is so natural that it's so easy to slip into the make-believe, the true imagination that goes into it. And I think it just comes from their respect of the fan base, knowing that, yeah, this is something that we care about. And if it's not done well, people aren't going to go.
That was one of the things that shocked me about Hogwarts. The castle itself is very small. And I'm not gonna being at the, okay, so I went to the theme park multiple times. I've been there as well, the one in Los Angeles too. But you start to notice things like how they do certain things. Hogwarts doesn't look that big from other areas of the park, but like you said, whenever you get up and into it, it's like you're looking at it up on a mountain. And it's the most fabulous thing that I've ever seen. Like, few things surprised me. The Disney castle, I love it to pieces, but the Hogwarts castle, it's like, oh my God, you're actually there.
It's like real life forced perspective, because when you're at the studio tour in line, you can see it. And you're like, wow, that you can get some really cool angles and like pictures of it, but it looks small. And then you're there in the courtyard in front of it. It's exactly what you're saying, Terrence. I mean, it looks like you're basically down on the other side of the lake, right? Or from Hogsmeade, looking up at this castle. It's so believable.
So just two more questions here because we have a new movie to get to. So, what was your favorite food? I know that you were sending us pictures in the Patreon Slack chat, and you had a couple of dishes there. Which one was your favorite?
So we had the oven roasted chicken, right? And then later on, what did we get?
Shepherd's pie.
Shepherd's pie, and you got
I had the holiday roast dinner. It was like a turkey platter.
I mean, they were all phenomenal. And the breakfast food is because we went to lunch early. It was like actually early, being like right at 11 o'clock, and they still had in the window the breakfast food, which all looked phenomenal as well. I would say that the herb encrusted roasted chicken was probably my favorite food.
So the big question that everybody's been wondering is your experience with Butterbeer. So talk to us about that.
We did have all three, and
not only did we have all three Butterbeers, we had all three Wizarding beers as well.
that's definitely true. We'll do the follow up, which was the best beer as well. Best Butterbeer. I'm just gonna go out and say it. My favorite was the cold, the standard cold Butterbeer.
Oh, see, you've changed your mind since you were here.
Up top. I love that. That's amazing.
I don't think I changed my mind.
Yeah, in our Patreon video, which hasn't gone up yet.
See,
you said it was hot.
Unconfirmed. It is really good. I mean, they're very, very close. I mean, and it might just depend on the time of day almost. I could easily like the hot better at a certain time of the day, just what I'm looking for. I will say, and it might have just been the day, the frozen, I was not that impressed with. It's like when I had the cold, I was like, man, this seems like it'd be perfect to go with some ice cream. Like it would just be like a Butterbeer float would be what I was hoping for. And that's not really what the frozen is. And so maybe that assumption that I made kind of tainted it, but the texture was a little odd, and maybe it was just because it was like 40 degrees when we had it. I don't know.
Well, see,
I was wearing shorts. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you're exactly right. You're going to enjoy the hot Butterbeer, and you're going to appreciate it a little bit more whenever you're out and about in the theme park, whenever it's 40 degrees outside, But whenever it's 90 in Orlando and with 1,000% humidity, you're either going to enjoy the cold or you're going to enjoy the frozen a little bit better. And personally, I love the cold. It was just, it's surprising the consistency, the level of consistency with everything in the theme park, but specifically with the food. I remember the very first time I went and had food at the Wizarding World, and I was blown away. And then I remember the very last time, which was about a year ago or so, a little more than a year ago, and it was still just that same level of wowness,
So I guess the remaining question is which of the beers was the best? And I know personally, I had this one last, but the Wizard's Brew, the stout was definitely my favorite. They were all really, really good.
Yeah.
But that was the one that I would, if I had it here, I'd be slamming it.
Yeah, I think that might have actually become my new favorite. My go is their Scottish Red Ale, which is really good. But the Wizard's Brew, it was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I love me just a classic Hogshead brew. I think that's the best in just my opinion. But to each his own. We all have different tastes and stuff like that. Well, Luke, I'm glad that you had a great time. I'm thrilled that you actually got the chance to go.
Me too. I feel like I was really letting the Hogwarts Radio fandom down. Like, how am I supposed to be some kind of content expert when I haven't even been to the gosh darn theme park? Like, what am I talking about? Like, who knows?
You are the worst.
Bringing nothing to the table. But now, hopefully, I've brought a Wizard's Brew, a cold Butterbeer, and an oven roasted chicken to the table. The proverbial table.
That sounds like a weird game for Amortentia Imperio Avada Kedavra. Jeez, I'm crow. So what would you rather, Amortentia? The Wizard's Brew, the oven roasted chicken, or the cold butter?
Bangers and mash.
Bangers and mash. Oh my God, bangers and mash is so good.
Wow, that I was close. I had Bailey pick for me between that and and one of them. So.
Well, awesome. So without sounding too repetitive, because like I said, we have spent a fair amount of time on the movie already, we're going to go through and kind of talk about it, because this is the first time that you two are on any kind of forum and voicing your thoughts to the public. So initial thoughts, just really walking out of the theater.
Well, obviously we loved it. I think that's very apparent from just our initial reaction video. I think we were both genuinely surprised at how much we enjoyed this movie. Personally, I went into it not expecting much from it. I didn't want to be disappointed, so I figured not be disappointed was to have no expectation whatsoever. And I liked where the story is going. I can see a lot of potential for the rest of the franchise and what it's going to bring.
So I don't want to straight up disagree with you, Bailey, but I had pretty into it knowing how good the first movie was and how different of a path it was treading than all 8 other movies. Like it's a new story. And yeah, there may be some hesitation that we don't have the books to be able to kind of hang our hats on, but that's really the main thing I don't like about the movies is we have the books that I'm so in love with that I dislike almost every single movie for some reason or another. Like I have major reasons to dislike something in every single one of the movies. Like, why'd you change that? Like, that's one simple line that you already have the same character in the scene. Like, why'd you change who said it? Like, that's just silly to me every time. This is my favorite movie of all 10 movies right now. Like, it's to me, it's not even close. And I know I'm probably in a pretty vast minority, which is an oxymoron. But the things that this movie is able to do, the magical theory blew me away. The level of spells we saw, and I don't have a book, and I think that's kind of a benefit to the movie that it pulls me in, and I don't have that book to compare it to. I almost think it's a plus.
So
I'd agree.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing right now, right? That I think is frustrating most people is that we had, in the Harry Potter series, we had context behind the story because we had the books. You know, we had 7 books. We had the text right in front of us, right? With these, it's a different level of storytelling. And I've said this on previous episodes, and I'm going to say it again, and I will probably keep saying it until the end of time, that J.K. Rowling is a master storyteller, and that a lot of people are having a problem with the way that the story is being told now because of all the questions that are being left. You know, J.K. Rowling is used to overloading us with information. She is. That's her style of storytelling. Sure, we left the theater confused. You know, at least I know I did. I had more questions than answers, but that's a sophomore movie for you. That's the good second movie, setting up the franchise. And a lot of people they didn't want that level of information. They wanted answers. And I can feel the frustration. I do. But at the same time, it's let the story play out. Let these characters develop, and just, hang on, because we're all in it. We're all on the same ride together.
Yeah. I love that we don't know where this story is going and that we're left with so many questions, because it gives us such an opportunity to speculate. I think the speculation is part of my favorite part of this fandom.
I could not possibly agree with you anymore. We haven't had this feeling in this fandom in over 10 years. Obviously we're invested. We're in for the long run. We're not going anywhere. But for someone who's just coming in looking for another feel-good Harry Potter movie, it's completely different. This is not a Harry Potter movie, and that's a big thing that they sell it as being within the Harry Potter wizarding world. But we're talking about adult wizards, So like innately, the level of story is going to change due to the situations that these adult wizards are going to find themselves in. It's not the 70-year-old dark wizards trying to take out a high school. We don't have that story, And for how silly that seems, if you really boil down the Harry Potter series, that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, we got to Voldemort's trying to take out Harry Potter, a 16-year-old and his high school. Like, it's just not the same level as basically this Hitler stand-in that's preaching pretty reasonable sounding things to a society that's been put down.
Right.
And it's easy to see why people are buying it. And the level of issues are adult level wizard issues. They're not high school level issues. And that's hard to sell to a new franchise 0.2 crowd.
And I think this is where people are having a hard time, but this is not a Harry Potter movie at all. Harry Potter ended at the end of book 7. Okay. It ended with the last movie, Deathly Hallows Part 2. It ended with Cursed Child. Well, that's arguable. But see, my point with this is that you're going to have, there's all types of fans within the wizarding world, right? You're going to have fans that are strictly canon fans that didn't like the movies. So they only like the books, right? And that's fine. And in fact, all of these are fine because to each his own, right? You can be a fan of the theme park and not like Harry Potter at all. That's an aspect of the fandom. You can be one of those that acknowledges all 8 books. You can be one of those that just acknowledges all 8 movies. You can be one of those that doesn't like Harry Potter but likes this Fantastic Beasts franchise. You can like the Wizarding World and the aspects in it and not even be a Harry Potter or Fantastic Beasts fan. And that's okay. But what people need to understand is that this movie, this film franchise is going to go in different directions, and there's going to be branches that, where it branches out to where, some of the story isn't going to make sense right away. But like I said before, that's because we don't have anything behind it. We don't know. This is new for us. This, just like Cursed Child was a new medium. Well, this is a new medium in a sense that we don't have a book to novel adaptation. So, I mean, while it's fine that you don't like this movie series, don't bash it because it's not something you wanted it to be.
The whole fandom idea is dangerous, and we've seen how Star Wars has dealt with it, and we've seen how Star Trek has dealt. I mean, any of these long-standing fandoms, it grows legs on its own, and it's tough when the original creator is still involved, right, and creating new content. That, I mean, I'm all for, fan created stories and things like that, but like, once and like a lot of those things gain legs on their own, and like it's hard not to be like, okay, that's almost canon because it gains so much behind it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's JK's world, and like I'm just happy that we're getting to experience it, but it's hers,
right?
Like,
yeah, we don't own it. I mean, the fans feel like they are entitled. Okay, so let's talk about the movie itself. Let's jump into the content, the meat of the movie. What are some of the big takeaways that you had?
Oh, so we saw it twice, Bailey and I, because we saw it the first time, and it was just, let's enjoy it, let's watch it, and then let's just download, which is what we did for our Patreon exclusive video. Like, let's just get the initial reactions out. Then 2 days later, I think it was, we went and saw it again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take notes this time because there were so many things that caught my attention and so many things that I didn't want to forget. And I am forgetting some of what these notes are actually talking about, but that's okay. The first thing was actually a preview, Wizards Unite preview. Bailey, do you remember what it looked like?
Yeah, I think we actually shared this on our Instagram as well, but it was just the quick, you see like a girl running into an alleyway and she catches a snitch and then leaves the poster or whatever up on the wall, which talks about Wizards Unite, I believe. Yeah, it was just that quick like teaser that was released on social media a couple weeks ago.
Very, very
You didn't
fast.
know what it was until the very end, which I thought was really compelling because it was really well done teaser.
Let's see here. This is from our Instagram account. Has a snitch flying around in an alley. A girl apparates in. She puts something up on the wall that says, Wizarding World is at risk of exposure. We need your help. Wizards Unite. And nothing says your world is at exposure than a big ass poster on the side of a building.
You gotta go chase that Niffler.
But this is cool because it's like a security camera caught all the footage, right? So yeah, oh my God, I geeked out. So it's, I don't know what you know.
Yeah, and then I think there was a website to like pre-sign up for email notifications.
Yeah. Coming 2019. And that's interesting because this was supposed to be out in 2018. You know, we were supposed to get Hogwarts Mystery and this game later this year. Hogwarts Mystery early in the year, this game later in the year. So I wonder what part of 2019. I can imagine like maybe first quarter that we get this game. And guys, we might have to go on hiatus while we play this. I'm kidding, of course.
I'm gonna get real fit.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna do a Wizards Unite weight loss Facebook group.
Wizards
yeah, we
Ignite.
can all keep a tracking log.
Right? But yeah, that was
Miles walked today.
it's pretty cool. Definitely cool.
So Bailey, feel free to jump in anywhere that you have more thoughts. If we're okay with it, I'll just run down the notes that I took while watching it.
Yeah, I tried to intersperse my notes between yours.
Okay. So I know some of these things have already been talked about. We can quickly kind of skip over it if it's like, that was just a thing. I didn't want to forget about it. But the switch between Grindelwald and Abernathy had to happen before the movie started, right? Because we open up in Makusa, and you see Pickery and the, I guess, English Minister of Magic walking up, and there's Abernathy looking through the slot in the door, but we know at this point now that was Grindelwald checking in on Abernathy. I guess polyjuiced is what it turns out to be. Right.
And it's kind of makes me wonder when this switch occurred. Because we know that they had to switch guards like a couple of times because Grindelwald was so persuasive.
Charismatic.
So I wonder if it happened like during one of those switches. It had to, because the level of security around Grindelwald was insane. We saw not even a fly could get into his personal bubble.
Stay out of my personal space.
Right.
You're in my personal space. Stay out of my personal space. Okay, Grindelwald, take it easy. No. But yeah, I mean, it's almost like the more changes in security you have, the more moving parts, the more subjected it could be to a breach. You know, it's like almost like do less. Like the less interaction, the more the fewer chances for a mishap. And like I don't think Abernathy was one of the guards at all. I think he's higher level than one of these prison guards, but I think he is like high level enough to have been involved in any of them, kind of thing.
And the switch, depending on how, I guess, long of a dose of polyjuice, it would have had to have been relatively recent.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think it has to be.
See, I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, and something else that kind of, we'll jump back to my note right before this, but like whenever we see Grindelwald hanging underneath the carriage with the Thestrals as it's flying by, is he turns into himself. So the polyjuice potion wears off. And I think that is kind of the specific time, or maybe that's right before he apparates over to hang on to it. But he knows that that's like the specific time that Abernathy inside is de-transforming as well, because they have the same dosage, is how I read that. It's almost like a time bomb of like, oh, timer went off because I'm changing. That means he's changing inside at the same exact time.
I wonder how that's calculated whenever you're making the potion.
Right.
I would think as long as you drink from the same batch of potion at the same time, it's the same dosage.
So Grindelwald and Abernathy had to be at the same exact place, the same exact time.
Swap the hairs and drink it at the same time.
Right. Huh.
I would, oh man, that could get really I'm not going to open up that can of worms. There's a lot of rabbit holes there. Like, oh, does body weight matter? Does height matter? Does magical ability matter? Like, there's a lot that you could get into. Like, how long does it really transform you? Is it different? Does the same dose 10 milliliter work the same for every single person, no matter what? I don't know. It's
Is it like the effects of alcohol where it varies on person to person?
right. And we know that, magical ability varies from person to person, and by the boat in the cave that Voldemort doesn't qualify Harry for being underage. So like that's the kind of thing that I'm like, there's a lot of variables there, but clearly they had it exactly right.
And Hermione has that point down as well. Like in Chamber of Secrets, she said that the Polyjuice potion would last them about an hour, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's
you're exactly right. And that's where maybe it's kind of outside of that. Like it doesn't really take those facts. It's just this dosage goes for this amount of time. That's the easy answer. I like to complicate it. That's fine. So the other note that I have kind of in the same area here is the Grindelwald's wand, which was the Elder Wand, and the Blood Pact are the two items that Abernathy, which is Grindelwald at that time, hands to the British Prime Minister, or the Minister of Magic. And I just thought it was interesting that those were the two specific items that Grindelwald had as possessions. Any thoughts on those two items?
Two very dangerous possessions, and I'm kind of surprised that the Ministry didn't pick up on the fact that was the Elder Wand, because of the description. Somebody had to have known that was the Elder Wand.
Oh, some crackpot theorist like Xenophilius. Like, no one's going to believe him, though. It's all fables. Like, no one really believes it. That's kind of the...
They have to have some sort of a wand maker there. I'm sure they weigh the wand whenever it comes in and all that stuff. I'm just really surprised that nobody had picked up on it, and it's kind of treated as just, another regular wand. And then the Blood Pact, I can imagine the magic surrounded around the Blood Pact, and nobody picked up on that magic. So I don't know.
Let's see. So it's in book 7, right? That they use like the magical detector thing that Filch has, right? Am I wrong on that? It's like a magic like metal detector wand. Or I guess that's actually before that. It's when they're leaving Hogsmeade.
Whenever they're getting into Hogsmeade. It's the Sneakoscope,
in book, right? I guess 5.
Sneakoscope?
Book 5, because the necklace is part of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. And the Sneakoscope kept going off, and they thought it was just broken, right? Or is that another part?
that was book 4.
Okay.
In book 3, actually. Book 3 had that 4 scabbers being around the whole time.
That's right.
But yeah, I was just I'm kind of with you. Like, there's got to be some innate magic with the Blood Pact that they should be aware of. Like, don't send that on
right. Like,
on
doesn't
the
it give off a bad vibe?
Like, don't send like, oh, these are the 2 things he came in with. Let's send him on the same carrier. Like, no, send those ahead. Like, send somebody on it with a port key, like ahead.
I'm sure they could have UPS'd it, next day aired it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to ship this wand.
Hey, why don't they use something like magical transportation for this? Like, let's, I don't know, more time in the air. Again, more chance for susceptibility to mistakes. Like, clearly.
Like side-along apparition or something,
Or,
but see if you let go on that. So all Grindelwald has to do is let go, and he can just go wherever he wants to.
Even with apparition, you have to be incredibly skilled because, if you screw up, you're splinched. And that's no fun at all. So I don't know if, I could see I can't see Grindelwald getting out of an apparition or anything like that. I can see him getting out of the port key, but yeah. Anyway.
So we're almost through the opening scene. But we've
not quite made it to the credits.
No, now we have the title screen, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, I guess right. I have a note on Abernathy's tongue was cut and it grew back. Grindelwald gave him a forked tongue. I wonder if it's almost like an inherent thing about the person that a regrown appendage, that it almost like takes on a certain part of that person receiving it. It just like almost inherently pulls, I don't know, like intent out of the person, or like the core being of a person to, you know what I mean? Like it's, I don't know. And we know he's two-faced already. I mean, that's specifically what his character is right now. So Snake tends to fit that.
Got the qualities of the
literary
serpent.
purposes.
Yeah.
And now we're at the title screen.
Now we're at the title screen.
So these, I started going a little bit quicker because I was like, oh, I've already got a lot of notes and we're not very far in the movie, so I'll slow down. The Robovac was really funny.
That was probably my favorite scene in the entire movie.
What's the Robovac?
So
the vacuum in the Ministry of Magic that's, going down the hallway, and it's got its little duster arm,
That's
and
right.
it dusts off Lita.
And then Newt too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was pretty funny. I wonder if that's Alexa enabled. And then there's the whole scene of Newt turning down the ministry. I thought that was an interesting scene where they're trying to force him to be an Auror, and he's like, no, I think my talents lie elsewhere. I'm taking my talents to South Beach, is what he's telling them.
I listened back to some of the episodes that you guys recorded while we were out, and I definitely agree that there's not enough context for who this mysterious person is who's taking over for Newt once he turns the job down. I kind of like, okay, well, are we supposed to know him? Was he in the last movie and I missed it, or I don't remember it? So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot where the context isn't necessarily like spelled out for you, but there's enough context that you can get the gist of what's going on. But I think this specifically needed some more fleshing out.
Some of my favorite lines are in this scene. So Newt was like, oh, it was a field trip. I was collecting material for my book on magical beasts. And Travis was like, you destroyed half of New York. And Newt's like, no, that's
actually incorrect
on both accounts.
on 2 accounts.
Yeah, on 2 accounts.
And Thesis is like, Newt, just
shut up.
Like,
Yeah.
let's not open that discussion. Like, you failed 4 times in this interview already. Like, probably.
Do you want to point out why they're wrong?
Oh, I love Newt. So then, we continue on, and Grindelwald takes the home from that fan as his henchman woman, who I don't know if is ever named. I'm sure it's named in the screenplay, but on screen it was not that I saw. He has her kill the 2 parents, and then they find the baby, and she kills the baby as well. Pretty cold-hearted stuff.
This is interesting. Rosier and let's see who else. I'm looking at the screenplay right now, and Caro. So maybe a descendant of Electus and Amicus. Yeah. So then see. This is scene 25, page 38 of the screenplay. It says, entering Grindelwald's hideout nursery afternoon. Grindelwald enters. A small child looks up, puzzled. Grindelwald contemplates him for a moment, then nods at Caro and turns to leave. We see another flash of green light as Grindelwald closes the door. And this scene got me thinking of all the kind of parallels that, like, all the alarms were going off in this scene. Just the way, from the way the cinematography was shooting this scene, it looked almost identical to Godric's Hollow.
Yeah, absolutely. Baby sitting on the ground, parents were already killed. Like, like, why is Harry so much more special than this poor French kid? Like it sucks to be that kid. And how many of those are there? There's probably a couple hundred of infants that went through that, or small children that went through that same exact thing. Like, and I think it's a parallel that we're supposed to kind of harken back. Like, why is Harry so special in that too? So
also, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Grindelwald, just saying, Grindelwald accomplished in 3 seconds what Voldemort couldn't even do in 8 movies.
When you
got someone else to do the job for him.
Yeah.
That is true. So then we start getting some information about Obscurus, Obscuri, and my radar always goes off on that stuff. Obscurus grows in the absence of love, a dark twin. So they get into a lot more information on, I'm going to call it this newer branch of magic. There's the Obscurial, who is basically possessed by this Obscurus spirit. And we knew that it comes from repressed magical ability, which is what we see from Ariana. And it seems like it fits Credence pretty well for that. But it also says that it grows in an absence of love, which I think is kind of a new segment of that. Almost makes me think that Harry easily could have developed an Obscurus for growing up with the Dursleys.
You know, I would argue that if he didn't have a bit of Voldemort's soul in him, that is certainly a possibility. But he already had that dark piece of magic, you know. So having something darker it wouldn't cancel anything out, obviously. But I don't
Some
think
would say he was never alone.
Ooh, that's scary.
But yeah, so my magical theory radar was definitely going on with Obscurus talk. Okay, so this movie in general had some of the most impressive magical charms, abilities that we've seen anywhere. And we kind of talked about this, Bailey and I, in our reaction video. But like, this is adult level wizard magic. It's not, hey, we're learning magic in school, but the extent of in the basement of his house. It's seen him do this in his case, but like what he does in his own house with the huge water area, the dungeon water tank for the Kelpie, it's ridiculous. Like it's one of the most impressive things done with magic that I think we've seen in general.
Agreed, and it really showcases Newt's ability to deal with all different kinds of creatures. I mean, we saw a little bit of this whenever him and Jacob went into the suitcase. Into the Newt case, as our friends at Speak Beastie would call it, went into the Newt case in the first movie, and I was kind of hoping we could see something like that again, but you know, with different characters and stuff like that. We did. We got to see the Kelpie, which was fabulous, and I remember us theorizing that the Kelpie's going to play a big role in the movie. No, this was just actually the Kelpie in his pool chilling out. You know,
just visually.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was really, really, really cool to see Newt in his element and how comfortable he was. You know, just like, I mean, Newt's got cojones, man, jumping in the water with this thing. Like, he's like, here, hold my coat. I don't want to get that wet. You know, and he just jumps into the water and he's like dealing with this Kelpie, this big Kelpie that could easily take him out like nothing, like a puppy.
Speaking of hold my coat.
And your shirt
Bunty?
too.
And you're like, who is Bunty? Like, I found her to be really charming and endearing, but who is she?
I wouldn't be surprised if she was a descendant of Lavender Brown.
You know, an ancestor. I could buy that. Yeah.
I liked her character. I kind of feel the jealousy she's got going on. She wishes she had Newt's affections.
I think she also respects him in a working relationship too. Like, she has maybe emotional relationship feelings, but I think she just highly respects him. I think she's someone who's passionate about the subject.
Mm-hmm. I think she admires his skill.
Yes, and that's a big part of what leads into her infatuation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would like to see more from her. She was cute, funny. Like, it was just a nice, easy little character to throw in that I thought was really, really well done. All right, so another thing that jumped out at me that I think there's probably a lot of really, really good discussion on is Queenie using a love charm or a love potion on Jacob.
Very, very scary stuff here. And it dives into an area that we've only theorized about in the Harry Potter fandom, now is brought out to the movies. So we're actually seeing it as a visualization. I mean, sure, it was in the books whenever, you know, Merope Gaunt.
Romilda Vane.
Yeah, Merope Gaunt, Romilda Vane, you know, all that other stuff. So very dark territory here, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think what breaks my heart the most about this scene is I can see where they're both coming from. I get Queenie saying, you know, is it just so wrong to want to marry you? I want to have what literally everyone else can have. But I also get Jacob that he loves her so much, he's willing to sacrifice being able to marry her in order to make sure that she is safe in her community and that she can still be who she is as a person.
Yeah. And it all comes down to sacrifice, right? I mean, that's a big part of what makes relationships work. But like, it's like both of them want to be the one that sacrifices, but they don't want to be the one that takes, you know, and you kind of have to have that at times. And they're both right. but one of them has to concede. Like, Jacob is right for wanting to protect her, but it's also her sacrifice to take herself away from that community. That's her choice, and he's not allowing her to make that choice. And I think that's a big part of why I kind of side with Queenie in the long run, at least for their relationship, not necessarily the long run of what she chooses at the end of the movie. But in this scene right here, like, yeah, why is it wrong for her to want to marry him? That's the sacrifice that she is choosing to make. But he's also not wrong either. That's why it's really well done and really complicated. But it's her magical world that she is sacrificing, and he's not letting her do that. And I think that's I don't know, kind of problematic. It's
definitely,
I don't know, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they definitely have to work through as a couple, and I think this is one of those stages that they're working through as a couple right now. And I could still say that, yeah, they're a couple. I mean, it's like they're taking a we were on a break.
We were on a break. Thanks, Ross.
I think we just found our episode title. But still, I mean, I totally agree with you, Luke. I just don't agree with how she's going about doing it. You know, how she's going about bringing Jacob against his will. I mean, whenever he snaps out of it, he's like, "Hey, it's nice to see you, Newt. Where the hell am I?" And then it's like, London. And
I've always wanted to go here.
To come here.
Yeah. Yeah, no joke.
That was hysterical.
Yeah, it's, and I mean, rightfully so, how Jacob feels about this. I mean, I get it, Queenie. Okay, so this, like I said, this is very, very, very dangerous territory, because presumably at the same time that Jacob is enchanted right now, Tom Riddle Sr. is enchanted with Merope Gaunt, and they conceived a child. What would have happened if Newt didn't intervene, and the Jacob had a kid with Queenie? You would have still had that same Merope Gaunt situation there. So that's a nice parallel to the series. I like that.
Yeah, that's actually pretty clean. That's a really good thought process there. And I wasn't trying to justify the love potion side
right?
of that
No,
at
absolutely
all.
not.
I just want to clarify, like, that's really not good, Queenie. Like, like I get it. It's difficult. That's not, and because you're capable, just because it's effective doesn't mean it's right. It would work. That doesn't make it right. And I think my overall thought on Queenie in this movie, I know there's been a lot of backlash on why is she so dumbed down. And I know we kind of talked about this in our Slack chat a little bit, so I wanted to bring it up. I don't think she's really dumbed down. I think she's sheltered, and I think she's been protected and kind of kept away from society a bit by her character. If we look at, from the first movie where we were introduced to her, she doesn't seem like she gets out that much because of the nature of her Legilimens ability and how powerful it is. There are times where I think she can't control it. I view it as it being kind of consuming on her and a stress on her, because, I mean, think if you were walking around and you literally heard every single person's thinking around you, and sometimes you can't turn it off because you're distracted by whatever it is. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot going on with her that maybe she's not as commonsensical as Tina. I mean, for one, who that's kind of her strength, is being a normal person. It's kind of what she brings to the table. So I don't think she was dumbed down. I think we honestly just got more exposure to her in a lot of different situations where she just wasn't at home with Tina or out with Newt and Jacob. It's not her skill set.
I see a lot of... Okay, I'm going to geek out for a moment here, so you guys just stay with me. But I see a lot of Anakin Skywalker in her with that same situation that she is kind of placed in. She's doing what she's doing out of love, right? And she's not able to control certain aspects of her abilities, and neither is Anakin. And ultimately, what ends up happening is Anakin turns into Darth Vader. I'm not saying Queenie's going to turn into like Darth Vader or anything like that, but I am saying that she, at the end of the movie, she made a very, very questionable decision, and a lot of people seem to think that she's a double agent, which I don't think so at all. I think there's not that much depth to her character. While I feel like we're seeing that she's dealing with a lot of these internal struggles, like her powers with her legilimens. I don't think she's that deep of a character yet. Yeah, she might be in the future, but we just haven't been exposed to that. But it's funny how it's like Anakin went to the dark side and Queenie went to the dark side. So I'm kind of hoping it turns out for Queenie just a little bit better than Anakin.
Yeah, I see it. My next note here is the Credence and Nagini love story. I view it as a love story. I don't know if everyone does, but I clearly think there's some emotion built up between them, some tension between them in a romantic sense.
Just a boy and his snake.
Yeah, it's true. And I thought they were pretty good to each other. Like he's trying to help her out. She's clearly trying to help him find what his place in the world is. But no way in hell that cage would hold her as a snake. I mean, the bars are like 8 inches apart. Like she attacks the ringmaster through the bars. It's just like, as she transforms, I was like, she could just have left anytime she wanted.
Right. No, she's there because she
small child could have squeezed through that.
Right.
Or she could have broken the glass at the London Zoo whenever Harry let her out, but she chose not to. So
and she went to Brazil instead.
Yeah. Took a vacation, became a Maldictus, got a tan.
I guess so. I guess we'll call it that.
The tropical climate's good for her skin.
Yeah, it actually is. Snakes like that. So
I also thought the circus house elf cleaning and packing was pretty cool. Like whenever they're like, all right, we got to get out of here. And they just started packing up and you see the elf just like snapping and like things are just getting done. Like not for abusing house elves, anything like that. I thought it was very impressive magic.
Yeah, it's a different aspect of house elf magic that we haven't been exposed to, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really thought it was neat that the entire big top tent shrinks down to this tiny little pouch. It's still sitting there smoking because there was a fire.
Right.
But it was neat. It was some good magic.
So there was also the mention of the predictions of Tycho Dodanis, which sounded like poetry that we get a lot of the backstory for. Yusuf and Lita and Credence is what we're led to believe, which really reminded me of the Tales of Beetle the Bard. It's like an old literature thing that she's bringing in to tell a story that's applicable to the narrative that we have right now. So I just saw some echoes there as well.
There's, and I'm sure at one point or another, there's going to be somebody able to decipher these runes, this crypto language. This cryptographic message here. It looks like 3 main bullet points, but on the other side of that, we saw the book in the middle, right? And this is it was a book owned by Nicholas Flamel and Yusuf Kama, but there was a prophecy, and this prophecy states: son cruelly banished, despair of the daughter, return, great avenger, with wings from the water. So those are the predictions of Tycho Dodanis. This is actually a piece of artwork from Mina Lima. So it's pretty amazing. I wonder what that means.
I feel like we might find out, or we might not.
We'll just have to wait and see. Someone
will figure it out in the next 2 years. So another thing that jumped out at me is it was stated that by Grindelwald that he specifically says this, that he knows that Credence can kill Albus Dumbledore. And that jumped out to me as, again, with, I don't know if it's a tinfoil theory hat of, I don't think it's really that tinfoil, but the theories surrounding the fight between Albus, Grindelwald, and Aberforth, where Ariana gets killed. To me, this speaks directly to that, of that Grindelwald knows how powerful the Obscurus is, and he knows that it can kill people even as powerful as Albus. He also spent the whole last movie as Graves with Credence, so he knows how powerful it is.
We haven't quite been exposed to this blood pact yet. We don't know what's going on with that, but the pieces are starting to come together, and Grindelwald knows that he can't go after Dumbledore. That's already a given. But if he can find somebody else to do his dirty work, then yeah, sure, why not? And why not find the biggest, baddest wolf in the world right now to go after one of the greatest wizards of all time? I feel like Credence is powerful enough to destroy Dumbledore. Do I feel like he'll actually do it? I don't think he'll be able to.
Obviously not.
He won't be able to. Well, no, I mean, yeah, we know that, but he won't be able to bring himself to do it, I think. And we're going to see that internal struggle. I think
Credence is too good for that.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
He is misguided and obviously has been unloved for a majority of his life, leading him to become this Obscurus. But Credence is still a good person at heart, and he cares about people, and he doesn't want to hurt them. It's only when they hurt him that he goes out of his way to hurt them back.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I really like Credence. I honestly didn't have too many thoughts on him after the first movie, but after this movie, I feel like I have so much more appreciation for Credence and who he is as a character and where we're going to see him go.
And it's kind of tragic. I mean, Credence, all he is searching for right now is identity. And he's so desperate and he's so thirsty for that knowledge that he is willing to believe almost anything. Now, I'm not discounting what happened at the end of the movie or anything like that. I mean, even though I want to, I don't want to believe it. But yeah, I mean, that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I just, I can't help but feel pity for him and what he's going through. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that children's book, Are You My Mother?
Yeah, right.
And, are you my mom? Do you know who I am?
And I felt sorry for Credence after I watched the first movie again, like before I went to see the Crimes of Grindelwald film. And I really did feel sorry for Credence and the way that he was treated by Mary Lou Barebone, because he was abused on so many levels. And it's just, he wanted to call her mom. He wanted to say, Mom, and I'm sorry, Mom. And she's like, I'm not your mother. Tough shit. I'm not your mother. Don't call me that. And
he was also abused by Graves. So he's also already been abused by Grindelwald, which we'll have lots to talk about in future episodes on speculating on where things are going. But the Black Market Portkey, I thought, was a pretty cool, quick little scene that we saw in the trailers over and over again of like, how is this going to kind of come up? I thought it fit pretty well. I thought the Scottish actor was pretty interesting. I'm assuming Scottish by the accent. I could be wrong on that. I thought it was a neat, quick little fun scene of like, what are we doing here? Oh, we're going.
Right.
And then we had the scene to France, and he gets into we'll call it Francigon Alley, whatever that main area is that he's tracking. And we skipped over the main circus portion of it, which was very, very cool. But we have Newt tracking Tina, which one, I mean, how cute is Newt when he's like asking advice on how to talk to Tina? And like he talks about the salamander eyes.
Don't mention the salamanders.
He's like, maybe don't mention the salamanders. It's just that was one of those. All right, Newt and Tina, pretty darn cute. Like,
well, and then bringing it back to when Newt's actually describing Tina's eyes to her, and he's like, I've only ever seen it, and he doesn't want to say salamanders. And Tina fills in the blank for him. It's like, oh, I know. True love.
It is as perfect as it gets. It's disgustingly perfect.
Yeah, whatever. I don't.
So, one of my biggest issues with this whole tracking Tina and the revealing charm that Newt uses is when the Niffler is going off and trying to hunt down other things and Newt's getting ready to leave, he just says Accio Niffler. Why didn't he do this in the first film? It would have saved him and Jacob so much trouble.
Right. I didn't think that you could Accio something living. I always thought that was a property of that spell that you couldn't do. I
had issues with that.
That was new. That was a new thing, and I agree. That's potentially problematic to magical canon.
I mean,
potentially. If
Harry would have known that, he could have said, like, Accio Ron after Ron left, and he could have, I mean, I'm stretching at this point, but still, I'm
sure Lavender tried it at some point.
I'm sure it worked, too. or like, I don't know. I don't know. Accio Niffler. Magic Queen saying that.
So my next note that I had written down here was Abernathy as Metamorph Magi or just really well-timed Polyjuice potion. This is when they're walking through the French ministry and he turns himself back into Abernathy, or the Polyjuice potion wears off right when they get into this, I guess, magical lift, right? Kind of an elevator situation. And it's also the second time that we've seen Abernathy change forms in this. And I don't know. The first time I saw it, I was a little confused. I was like, is he a Metamorph Magi? Yeah, like just kind of putting things together. And it seems like it could still just be well-timed Polyjuice potion, which is becoming more and more utilized by this group.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering if there's like a cure to Polyjuice potion. So say you take your Polyjuice and it's going to last you an hour, but you decide half an hour through that you don't need to be whoever it is that you're pretending to be anymore. Is there an anti-Polyjuice potion?
Or just an undo type of magic? Like, hey, I'm
like a counter potion to it?
Or even just like a charm. Like, just like erase effects of potion. Like a Scourgify on the effects kind of thing. That's interesting.
Or if there's like a little blue pill that he swallows, and after,
well, that's what I was thinking. Like, is he hiding that capsule in his tooth?
Right. Yeah. No joke.
Cyanide pill.
If effects last more than 4 hours, please see a doctor. Sorry.
We also then, a little bit later on, met Irma Dugard, the half-elf. We found out actually a half-elf later on in the movie, but I thought that was for a Beasts movie. And yes, there's a big discussion on beings versus beasts, and it's debatable on elves. Not getting into that, but the half-elf setup was new.
I think this is, this character, she's absolutely sweet. But the whole half-elf thing, look, we're all adults here, and we know what had to happen to make that happen. I have a problem with it. I really do. I don't think that humans need to be procreating with beasts. And in this movie and in this franchise, that's a form of bestiality. And it totally disgusted the shit out of me. I didn't like it at all.
To be completely fair, Elrond from Lord of the Rings is a half-elf.
Well, that's fine. Lord of the Rings can...
It's a little bit different on the elf description.
Yeah. But
I wouldn't have an issue with it as long as it's consensual.
Well, we don't know everything behind.
Exactly, we don't know. But the way I see it, it's kind of like interracial relationships.
I don't think house elves have that kind of capacity. I don't think they have the capacity to love.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that.
House elves have a huge capacity to be loyal, definitely, but not out of love. I think it's more out of the way
The
that they're built.
obligatory loyalty?
Yeah, exactly. The magic
I don't know.
behind that.
I think we've only ever seen bad examples of house elf owner relationships.
It's all been pretty extremes. Like, in all honesty, you have Dobby, terrible, and he rebelled. You have Crouch with Winky, who was probably overly affectionate to a very abusive owner for a completely different reason. And Creature, who's been bringer of horrible wizarding family. It's the three real examples we have are still probably not the average.
Yeah, I think that there's gotta be examples in the wizarding world of a good relationship between a master and their elf.
We do have one more example, Hepzibah Smith. We had her and her house elf as well, which I'm blanking on the name. That's embarrassing. Sorry, team. But that's the only.
We call you a content expert.
Okay, so the way that I see house elves and the way that wizards see house elves are the way that wizard families are seeing house elves are they're just servants. You know, there's nothing more to that. I don't think. It's only,
and that's Hermione's entire platform is they are more than that. They are sentient.
But Hermione is also a muggle. So she has, I'm not saying wizards don't have the capacity to be able to empathize and sympathize with the situation of the house elves for their servitude, but I don't think that they look at it like that, you know?
A discussion that we should continue another time. There's a lot to that, I think. Really, I do. There's a lot to that and a lot of different rails we can run on. I mean, it's a really, really big topic.
It's probably an episode in itself.
I believe that. And I thought Irma Dugard was very, very sweet and a great caretaker, and the love that she had for Credence was evident. I thought that, you know, she did what she was told, and but it was more than that. It was more than, if I'm going to go with what Terrence is saying, it was more than just a loyalty to a master kind of thing. There was actual kind of affection and motherly intent to protect this child, and it was, I don't know, unexpected and very, very sweet. Something I know you guys have talked about is capturing the Zowu with a cat toy. I don't have a whole lot to say on that. It was neat.
It was cute. Yeah,
it was cute.
Yeah, you have this big old terrifying creature from, you know, where the wild things are, being mesmerized by this little, you know, this little cat toy. So I just, that was so perfect.
And I'm not trying to gloss over it at all. I think that really gets to the nature of everything that leaves, right? I mean, he's basically saying, yes, it's big, it's terrifying, it's potential, it's capable of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make it inherently evil or anything. It's just capable. That doesn't make it a bad thing. And it really brings it down to the level of it's still a creature. It's still a beast with feelings, and you can still reason with it, or at least work with it, you know, in a certain way. And I thought that was a really neat little thing. And right along with that, Tina seeing this happen and just the gushing that she's doing over seeing Newt take this terrorizing situation and literally solve it with a cat toy. It was just like, you could tell she fell pretty hard on screen at that point. Maybe that's just me, but I thought it was pretty clear that was a big change point in their relationship.
Yeah.
Or a confirmation point.
I knew I loved him for a reason.
Right. Another Obscurus note, the Obscurus goes wherever Credence goes, protecting him.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot to unpack there. Maybe we'll put that one on ice for now.
I think so. I'm making asterisks in our document here of like these topics that we could spend entire episodes on. So
they're just, yeah. And this was like, I was watching this and I was like, I could literally just be taking notes this whole time,
Uh-huh.
but I'm trying to also watch.
Trying to enjoy the movie, right? Yeah, exactly.
The whole L plus N thing, I really don't want to get into much of that right now. There's a lot to it.
Oh, I love it.
Leda plus Newt plus Theseus love triangle. There's so much to unpack on timeline and current feelings and past feelings. Another huge topic.
Yeah, absolutely. But just real quick, glossing over it, it's tragic. It is very tragic. And it's something that I think messes Newt up for a long time, and he's not able to quite let go of that. And we see that even in the first movie, where Queenie kind of reads his mind, and he's like, "Don't do that. I don't like it." She's like, "Well, I can't help it," and she kind of gives him just this little bit of advice about Leda, and I feel so sorry for Newt. I totally do. It's something that you can obviously see that he's trying to work through.
Mm-hmm. And even in his first scene with Leda in this film, you see her talking about how she purposefully did something to get in detention with Newt after he was in trouble. And she's like, "Don't you remember?" And you can tell, like, Newt clearly does. And he's like, no, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I think the first time we saw it, you and I, Bailey, he was like denying it. I was like whispering to you, I was like, he remembers.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, he remembers. But he's playing it off as, not a big deal. Don't remember, to make it easier on himself, I think. Because if you don't have that connection, it's a little easier to kind of put it behind you. But yeah, lots to unpack there. And I also was listening back to some of the episodes we had the character analyses that we had before the movie even came out. And spoiler alert, for young Leda and young Newt, she gets in trouble and he takes the fall for her, if we don't remember that.
Yeah.
And he gets halfway suspended, expelled, that whole thing. So that's a thing.
Yeah, it totally is.
Not seen on screen, but it's in the canon somewhere.
Yeah. He gets expelled. He doesn't get to come back to Hogwarts. So and Dumbledore kind of sees that. Newt is a nice parallel to Hagrid, I think, in more ways than one, but the expulsion definitely. Because it really wasn't his fault. We also
from the conversation that we had on that episode 218 or whatever it was, it sounded like he maybe did get to come back. It's open-ended the way it's written. It almost sounded like it was potentially more of a suspension than an actual expulsion. Another bit of magical theory that I know from one of my earliest hosting episodes for Hogwarts Radio, I've become obsessed a bit with boggarts and the relationship between boggarts, and are they fatal, which is a question I've taken from Terrence, and all of that interaction. And we specifically know now from Dumbledore, which we know is the most reliable source ever on magical theory. That's asterisks. Yes.
Reliable source ever, period.
They can't hurt you, is what he says. He says it's only a boggart. It can't hurt you when talking to the students in young Newt's class. I think, and maybe even specifically Leda in that case. But that was something that I took away from it, that if we're to believe that, then that changes some thought process on boggarts. Any other thoughts on that right now? A lot to unpack there again. But,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it might not be able to physically hurt you, but I really think it can do some mental damage.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, you
could still have a stroke.
We see this. Harry, I mean, it can cause physical damage. Harry faints. He hits the floor. Don't tell me that didn't hurt.
So it almost reminds me, as a kid, I remember I went to Universal Studios once, and they had like this mummy walkthrough experience. And it's kind of similar to how Halloween Horror Nights, like they have the actors there and they're doing things and they're not allowed to touch you. And it's kind of like that. You know, the boggart can't touch you. It can't physically hurt you, but it could still mentally scar you.
That's actually very true. Yeah, a real quick similar story, Bailey, that I have. I was at Universal Studios, I think oh God, I don't know if it was in LA or not, where they had the Walking Dead exhibit.
That's out here.
Yeah. So I was out there and I went through that exhibit by myself. My wife didn't want to go. And, you know, they really do get close to you. And so I'm walking through the queue, right? And there's this, you know, they can get like right up on you. They just can't touch you. Well, this poor guy, this poor zombie, he misjudged his reach and he ended up popping me in the face. And he got out of character so fast. He was like, "I am so sorry. Are you okay?" And I was like, "Zombies can't talk." And I was like, I was so just like, while I was messing with the poor guy, I was like, "Yeah, no, I think I'm fine." And he was just like, "Are you all right? Are you sure?"
I distinctly have memories of going through this Mummy walkthrough that they had at Universal when I was like 7. I was terrified.
But yeah, boggarts. Yeah, they can mentally scar you. They can screw you up, I bet. Because it's forcing you to relive your very worst memory, your very worst experience, the thing that you fear the most.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be, like in Neville's case, you know, Snape in his grandma's clothes. I don't know if that's mentally scarring. I think that was pretty hilarious. But your grandma's clothes. I look incredible.
But the real thing I took away from that, some of the questions I've been asking other podcasters out there on their own shows is, you know, like, are boggarts faders? So, like, if it turned into a basilisk, like, would it just kill the entire room? You know, like, I think this is pointing to that not being a thing.
Yeah,
which is good.
That's true.
But
well,
it kind of saddens me.
Wasn't and I know we just mentioned this brief in the early on in the episode, the snake, the snake in Harry's year 3 that who saw it? One of the Patil sisters, right?
Oh yeah, the cobra. Yeah,
was it a cobra or a basilisk?
It was a cobra in the movie. At least it's not specifically stated in the book.
Okay.
In the book, it just goes through, and then it turned into a this, and then a this, and then a this.
Okay. Because I'm thinking,
with fill in the blank Hogwarts or a Gryffindor classmate. Everybody but Lavender.
Yeah.
And Harry and Hermione faced it, I think is what it was. The scene between Lita and Albus, I thought was really neat. That was one of the few scenes we didn't have any inkling from the trailers on. Just the interaction of these two characters. We didn't know that was going to happen, but it makes a lot of sense. And I didn't get the exact quote here perfect, but the main thing that I took away from it was Albus saying it's never too late to kind of relieve yourself of, you know, the issues that you have. And confession is wonderful, or so I hear. Regret is my constant companion. So we know how troubled Albus is in general, and this seems like one of the very few times, because of who he's talking to and knowing what she's probably been through, that he's having some empathy with her and kind of opening up a little bit of his own issues growing up with Ariana, with Grindelwald. And it's kind of a hard on your sleeve kind of conversation that they have.
So yeah, in this scene, Dumbledore says, "Lita, I know how painful the rumors about your brother Corvus must be for you." And she goes, "No, you don't. Not unless you had a brother who died too." And Dumbledore goes, "In my case, it was my sister." There's something there. That first part, Lita, I know how painful the rumors about your brother Corvus must be for you. Rumors suggest that it might not be true, that this must not be true, that Corvus still has to be alive somewhere, and Dumbledore may know Corvus's true location or identity.
And kind of going back to that quote you just read, one of the saddest things I think of this whole movie was when Lita asks Dumbledore about his sister. Well, did you love her? And he says, not as much as I should have.
Yeah, that is incredibly sad.
It really tugged at my heart.
Yeah. I really thought they did a wonderful job, and all credit to Jude Law as well, of capturing the struggle that Albus is going through. Like, just in the few, because he wasn't in that many scenes, really. But I think the takeaway that you can get from it is he's a really complicated guy, and it's very different than the Albus that Harry knows. You know, like he's still specifically dealing with some of these things that we know about in his past, and I think they capture that pretty effectively. So the next note that I have is one that I don't remember specifically everything about what I wrote here, and I'm thinking it may have been a swipe texting typo, I'll say. So it says, drawing the clouds, I blood pact in the mirror. I think the first four words don't make any sense here. I think it maybe is, I don't know. I have no idea. But the blood pact being shown.
Something about the mirror of Erised.
And it was done in blood on their palms, and that's why they're holding each other's hands. I thought that was, pun, really touching. But I mean, clearly this is a big thing to both of them, at least to Albus. We still haven't really seen too much from Grindelwald thinking about emotions towards Albus. We've seen him thinking mainly about abilities of Albus. Is kind of all I'll say about that.
Yeah, no, I kind of really think that Grindelwald has washed his hands of how he feels about Albus, because he has built up so much of a, not really a hatred for him, but a dislike for Albus, because he doesn't, since Albus doesn't share, he no longer shares what Grindelwald really is standing for and what really wants. I think that he's just, he says, I'm done with you. You're nothing to me now. And I honestly think that if not for the blood pact, Grindelwald would have gone after Dumbledore already. I was just saying that I don't think there's any love from Grindelwald to Dumbledore at all. He's like, you don't stand for what I stand for anymore. I'm done with you. And just kind of, that was that.
I have a note for, it's kind of a written out cool thing, but blue fiend or friend fire. Really, really cool visuals. The magic of it's really neat. So it's very, very deadly to walk through this blue flame if you're not apparently completely sold on the some certain ideal has put into it by nature, is what it seemed like to me.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of interesting to note here that, I mean, Grindelwald's hardcore followers have no issue walking through this. But then you get Queenie walking through. It leaves you to believe that she's not 100% sold on what he's selling yet. But she's enough on board to be able to walk through safely.
My next note is Flamel hasn't seen action in 200 years. WTF was he doing before? Like, what was he doing 200 years ago?
And my response to this one, he was drinking tea on his couch. Obviously, he's fragile.
Fair.
I think Flamel trying to stay out of the public eye.
Well, and I mean, when you've lived for however many years, it's got to be, you have to keep a low profile. Otherwise, people are going to be like, why does that guy sound familiar?
Right.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he get any older?
At this point, I mean, in this movie, he's already, 600 years old. So he's already lived 400 years, and then add the other 200 on for, not seeing any action. So he's possibly seen action like for an entire 4 centuries, and he have probably gone through a lot in those 4 centuries.
You know what? I'm just tired.
Well, and I mean, to kind of bring in a reference from another series here, in Twilight,
That's exactly where I was going with it.
The vampires move around constantly so that they're not recognized and they don't draw too much attention. So either you're going to stay under the radar like Flamel does.
Yeah, well, and I was also thinking when they go, is it to Paris that they see the really, really old... Italy, yeah, and they see the really, really old vampire family. It's like, that's kind of the feeling I got from Nicolas Flamel, is he maybe has
He's the Volturi of Paris.
Yes. Not as evil or anything, but like there's a feeling of that. Like if he was active for 400 years, he's taken 200 years off. Like that's fine. He's earned it. Like let him be.
It's a brief vacation.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought that was interesting for sure. Really, really neat. Well done character, I thought, for quick, fun, not a whole lot of depth, but an easy throw into the series. So this was another line that kind of caught my attention. We're getting close to the end of my notes, so we'll go quickly through it. But Grindelwald doesn't understand the nature of things he considers simple. This is after the Niffler shows up with the blood pact to Newt and hands it to Grindelwald or to Albus on the bridge in front of Hogwarts. This very much reminded me, and I kind of referenced it earlier, Voldemort not thinking that Harry's magic or an underage wizard's magic would show up in the scene in the cave with the boat going across the lake of Inferi. That's what it made me think of, is kind of undervaluing how strong even the lower people in a society caste system are, if that makes sense. Right. They both have that flaw. And then there's the whole, this is many asterisks on this one.
We're going to start getting into the whole Lita story and Aurelius Dumbledore and all of that, which I'm sure we're going to be spending at least 5 to 6 episodes on.
Many episodes.
At least 2 years on.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Got a lot of airtime to fill.
So yeah, Grindelwald calling Albus Credence's brother, Aurelius Dumbledore, all of that lumped together. Tons to talk about there. My last note, we've kind of already talked about. Queenie is very sheltered, and the large black drapes that we saw all over the city were not Lethifolds.
Right.
I was a little disappointed.
They were not,
at least not confirmed.
They were banners that only wizards could see, and it called to
Is that what it was?
Yeah, called to Grindelwald's rally. So that was pretty interesting.
Grindelwald's version of a dark mark.
Almost.
A CTA. Call to action.
Oh my God.
So Bailey, I don't know if you want to bring up the and I know you guys have kind of touched on some of the how is Credence a Dumbledore. Bailey, I don't know if you want to touch on the theory that you brought up right when we left the theater the second time.
Mm-hmm. So initially, when we find out that Credence is a Dumbledore, my brain is going, okay, well, how does this happen? Is he a brother? Obviously, they say he's Albus's brother. But I still don't think it's as straightforward as either Kendra or Percival Dumbledore had another child. I have this theory that Aurelius is Ariana's in some way, whether it's she was raped or it was something incestuous, but I think that it's basically both a brother and a nephew, if you will.
That's an interesting theory. There's a lot floating around the internet right now, a lot of different types of theories. Perhaps my favorite right now is that Ariana and Aurelius are twins in some way or another. And much as, again, the Star Wars parallel, one was taken from the other and hidden away by, maybe Percival or even Kendra. We don't know. But there are tons of theories floating around right now about this. Easily something to spend, 6-7 episodes on for each theory.
And there is whenever we see Grindelwald, to kind of go into a theory that I know is definitely out there of that Grindelwald raped Ariana is out there. And the fact that that Grindelwald pretty consistently calls Credence my boy when he's talking to him. Yeah, they could just be trying to get endearing, trying to get allegiance from him, but it could be a double entendre, literary, irony. So I don't know where I fall. The easiest one, I think, for timeline and everything is, it's Percival's child with somebody else, and it's just a step sibling.
Right.
That's the easiest one to be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's the Sherlock Holmes. There were things going on off screen that we didn't know about, and they fit all the parts. Like, that's okay, that's fine. But kind of the more darker themed, and right when Bailey kind of threw, because this was right when we left the theater, we hadn't gotten into any fandom. We stayed away from everything really, really, like, actually incredibly effectively somehow. And I was like, wow, that really seems like Lifetime movie to me. It's really, really adult themed. I don't know, because of that reason, I don't know if this franchise will go that way, regardless of how well I like how it fits and how messy it could get because of it. But I don't think that it's going to go that way. So I like it for a lot of reasons, but I don't think that's really what's going to end up being.
Yeah, I mean, there are dark theories floating around right now that I don't think it's a direction that J.K. Rowling is going to take this series. I mean, she's already morbid enough as is with this writing.
I don't see it going this way.
But
I like the theory.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we have to discuss, because even though it's not probable that she'll go that way, she could surprise us all and take a spin on the third movie and just like kind of mention all of this and really spin the series into a dark corner. I just don't. But I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
I would be very shocked if she did, but honestly, I think given how political Joe has been lately, it wouldn't surprise me too much.
So in that vein, I will say J.K. Rowling has some big balls, and we already have seen, we've talked about in this episode and on the previous episodes, how grown up this franchise is compared to the Harry Potter franchise. And it could be, for that reason, like her wanting to challenge the status quo. We've seen her do that before. It's not surprising if she really pushes the envelope, because she does have that social cachet. She has that literary cachet to actually make a change for something that she believes in. If there's a story that she's going to tell, as you said to Aaron, she's a master storyteller, but she does it for a reason. And if there's something that she's getting to for social justice reasons, I could see her pulling that string to do this. I mean, the most successful literary author of all time making a statement and forcing this thing to be talked about because it's an issue. There's a lot of things that get swept underneath the rug, and she has that power now. So, I could see it. I don't know. We'll see.
I could see her I could see her losing a lot of her base if that were to happen. If she were to take that step, and really, this isn't just pushing the envelope. This is going beyond the envelope, and into something that is not only a dark and morbid topic, but with everything happening right now, with people using their power and sexually assaulting people, I just don't see this as being a very successful move for her in the long run.
I don't see Joe having an issue pulling the trigger. I see the studio having an issue going forward with that storyline.
I completely agree with that.
I can get on board with that.
I think Joe would do it in a heartbeat. She's so outspoken and has no problem saying what's on her mind. I don't think that she would care if she lost a large portion of her following, because those people don't agree with what she believes in, so I don't see her caring. But I feel like don't think it's a move that the studio would ever allow to happen just for profit's sake.
I agree with you, and I think in her mind, putting words in her mouth, it would be, well, if you don't agree with me on this, then you're probably fundamentally missing the point of what my books are trying to do in the first place.
Ooh, these are powerful words from Joe, but powerful theoretical words from Joe.
Yeah, but I mean, does that make sense? Like,
no, it really does. Yeah, no, it totally does.
I think there are a lot of people out there that miss a lot of the major themes, and because it's built in such a whimsical, fun, easygoing story for the long run, that you can miss some of these more entrenched themes that are there from chapter 1, and she has nothing to lose at this point. I mean, she has, if it's a financial thing, no, like she's not going to lose money because of it. Like, she's fine. Like, that's right. It's a social thing,
right? But any kind of future project that she might want to do with the Harry Potter franchise, because she doesn't own it anymore. Warner Brothers owns all the rights to it, and they can do whatever they want with this Wizarding World franchise. And if they want to not allow her to continue with the story because that's the direction she wants to go in, that's most certainly their right. And the studio at the end of the day is just going to protect its interest. You know, if Warner Brothers went in that kind of direction, one, that would be a first for the studio, because I don't think that they've ever had a movie that really pushes the envelope like that. That's really that has that kind of edge to it. Regardless if it's one of their most successful franchises of all time or not, they're not going to allow her to be able to continue if that's the direction she wants to go in.
Yeah, and I'm mostly just devil's advocating more than anything for a theory that I think for the story could easily be told. Again, my initial thought was, I don't see it going that way. It just depends on what Joe wants to do. And I think that, like what you're pointing out, there's a lot of good evidence. Both of you were saying it. The studio would never let that happen.
Right.
So
right.
I'm completely on board with it not really being a thing. It's just worth talking about.
Very true.
So those were my notes watching the movie for the second time.
Okay. Well,
look at that. We made it to the end.
We have enough content now, I dare say, for 2 years. To be able to, literally for 2 years. And if we figure out that we go weekly, every week, 104 episodes, we can easily pick out 104 things out of this Fantastic Beasts film franchise to theorize about, to discuss, to play around with, and all that good stuff. So there's a lot to talk about. We have a lot of time left. And I'm sure we're going to dig into like a lot of these as time moves along. Okay, so I know that there's things that we didn't get to in here, and that's for sake of time because we did go over a little bit. But before we get out of here, what was everybody's favorite character?
My favorite character was the wizarding vacuum. I really loved it. I want one for my own house.
That's awesome. Some nerd is going to build that.
Not only does it clean your floors, it brushes you up too.
I will help crowdfund that.
Somebody start a Kickstarter, get that going.
Yes.
My favorite character, and there were a lot of them. There were a lot of really, really good characters. Newt. I love Newt. I am so impressed by his ability, just magical ability alone, and his interaction with the beasts were incredible. Very, very impressed. And the new Tina stuff, man, it was really, really cute. I really, really enjoyed it. So Newt's my man.
My favorite character is still Lita Lestrange. I love her story, and the internal struggle that she has. I love her character arc, even though it feels like we were on a roller coaster with her because she wasn't in like a lot of the movie, but the parts that she was in, her character had progressed really fast, and well, we all found out why at the very end. So, I'm one of those right now that Lita didn't die kind of guys, and I need to work through it because,
she's gone, bro.
No, she's not gone. She's not gone, man. She's not gone.
Well, and you can't deny that Lita's got some style.
She's got style.
Yeah, Zoe Kravitz really just.
I loved her costumes.
Yeah, they were beautiful, beautiful. But Lita is by far my favorite character, just because of the internal struggle that she has, the way that she handles things. Because I expected her to be like a darker character, in this film. And granted, I mean her story's sad. It is dark, and we all assume the Lestrange family name is associated with dark and evil and all this bad magic and stuff like that. But that's not the impression I got from Lita. And I just felt that there was only really one person that understood her and what she was going through and showed her kindness. And that was because he was an outcast himself. And I love Lita. I'm going to start a website, LitaLestrangeIsNotDead.com.
Lita lives.
LitaLives.com. Lita lives. That's right.
Special shout out to Dumble Daddy.
Dumble Daddy.
Or would that be
Jude Law.
Lita Lestrange 2020?
Lita for president, right? So yeah, that's I guess that's pretty much it for this episode. Like I said, there's a lot we didn't touch. Don't worry. We still have like 104 episodes until the next movie comes out. Let's start the countdown now, guys. Let's start the clock. We will be recording episode 329. That's going to be our reaction episode to the Fantastic Beasts 3 film.
Assuming no delays.
Assuming no delays, right? Assuming it doesn't get pushed up, too.
So. Well, assuming we don't have a Half-Blood Prince situation on our hand.
Right. So
yeah.
Let's
push it up. Let's push it forward.
If you're listening to the movie, I'm sorry. If you're listening to the podcast 3 years from now, just, remember us. Yeah. We'll still be
Send
here,
us a message if we were wrong.
Right. But anyway, I'm afraid that's all we have time for this week. Special plug. I know I mentioned it at the top of the episode, but we did an episode with Speak Beastie, and it was called the Speak Beastie Radio episode, and Ariel and Amy from over there joined Jeff and I the other day, and we sat down, we recorded this fun episode about the Crimes of Grindelwald film. We discussed everything. I mean, everything about it. And I'm surprised that I'm not, Crimes of Grindelwalded out yet. But it was a very interesting discussion, some of the topics that we got into, especially about the fandom. I want you guys to check it out. If you're subscribed to our feed, it's on our feed right before this episode. So it's in between 224 and 225. You'll see Speak Beastie Radio #1. We titled the episode Amazing Animals and Where to Seek Them. So I thought that was pretty funny. But definitely go check it out. And please subscribe to Speak Beastie as well. Also, we invite you to check out our Patreon for exclusive Hogwarts Radio content, such as our reaction videos. Those are the most recent pieces of content that we have up there. Very fun things to do for our patrons, I think. And shout out to all of our patrons listening to us now. We really appreciate all of your support. I know this episode ran longer than usual, but we're just so excited to have new content to talk about, to dive deep into the new movie, and we're going to continue to do that for many, many more episodes to come. Well, guys, until next time, I am Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Luke Hogan.
And we'll see you next time for episode 226. Bye-bye.
Stay classy, Hogwarts. Woo! See you later, y'all babies.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.